We are more than 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, and Asian communities across the country are still dealing with anti-Asian racism and, in some cases, violent attacks. That kind of hate is actually on the rise, according to a new report released by the Chinese-Canadian National Council Toronto chapter. A total of 943 reports of racist incidents were reported across the country in 2021, a 47% increase from the year before. The attacks continue, too, with reports of being coughed at or spat on increasing by 42%. To talk more about this disturbing report, we welcome to CP24 tonight Kenneth Lin, an anti-Asian racism advisor to the CCNC Toronto chapter, and Evie Kwong, a Toronto Star journalist and editor of In Their Own Voices. Good to have both of you on. Thanks for being with us. Kenneth, the trends, they're troubling, and it looks like the most vulnerable groups, like women and children, are seeing the most hate. Talk to us about the numbers.
Definitely. So while disturbing and unacceptable, this pattern really is not a surprise to our team. We're seeing how marginalization plays out in interpersonal and systemic forms of anti-Asian racism here. This includes those who have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and systemically overrepresented in precarious, low-wage, frontline roles such as domestic care workers, agricultural workers, grocery care workers, delivery workers, personal support workers, and even spa workers. Another piece really important to remember is that anti-Asian racism has always existed in Canada. It's important to keep in mind that if the numbers of racist incidents reported are less next month, it doesn't mean the problem has gone away. Anti-Asian racism is a systemic issue that requires long-term committed action by individuals, institutions, and governments at all levels and in all sectors.
So well said. Evie, when you went through this report, was anything a surprise? What stood out to you?
Honestly, it wasn't surprising. I'm actually super thankful for CCNC, who actually was able to find a way, this reporting service that started in 2020. Just as Kenneth said, it's not anything new. It's not that anti-Asian racism is new. It has happened, a lot of, physical things and even just things that people hear on the street. But because of this reporting, we are able to see more numbers. One thing I want to keep in mind, and I'm sure Kenneth has also told me before, is that not everyone in these communities are comfortable going forward and reporting their cases. Often they feel like, there might be a language barrier. There might be fear of, going to the police and reporting it. And so what we have here, seeing this increase, is definitely not all the numbers that we know of. And it's just something that it's so demoralizing, honestly, because, everyone here just wants to be human and survive the pandemic. It's been hard for every single person, but to be, just by the way you look at who you are, subjected to be spat on or anything or called names, that is truly just something that's completely demoralizing, especially for people who are seen as weaker or more marginalized in the society by these people who are bullying and, harassing and abusing these people.
Yeah, Kenneth, I think it's so important that we talk about that because there is a real sense of fear here, right? Racialized communities often just internalize the experience and they think, well, I better not say anything about this. Do you think about all the people who didn't make it to this report, who didn't say anything at all, who didn't want to come forward?
Absolutely. So, Evie, well said. We understand and recognize that the reported incidents represent only those who know about our online reporting tool, have made the time to report, made an effort to report, maybe have access to technology and were digitally literate to be able to report. And so that's really the responses are only a small glimpse of what's really happening in Canada. Another thing that we have found of those reports and those who courageously come forward to report is that this is really a community tool, meaning that this is a community-generated, entirely 100% crowdsourced funded grassroots tool. And so we're here to amplify those findings. What we know is that, of course, it's representing only a small segment of our population, but that 71% indicated that they did not report their incident to any other institution. So, for example, not to the police, not to Human Rights Commission, and of only 5% of those said that they had reported to the police. And in the comment section, we do have a descriptive portion of our survey where then many expressed disappointment, including feeling invalidated when they did report to the police, feeling that they didn't feel adequately supported or that concrete actions were provided when they did.
So, Evie, when you hear that some people didn't feel comfortable going to the police about this, that they didn't feel like it would be taken seriously, how does that make you feel?
It's honestly, again, something that I don't find too surprising. And, listening to the people who have been on the front lines, including Butterfly, which help Asian women who are in sex work or working in massage parlors, they also say the same things. They say it's not about more police presence. It's not definitely about that, especially when they're also being targeted and kind of lumped into this human trafficking thing. It's not about more police. It's more about getting it out there, the message out there, making a comfortable environment, where governments actually care to make policies, that it makes it easy for someone to report something, that they're being listened to, that they're being taken seriously. And, one thing I really just want to commend is obviously what CCNC does, what Kenneth does, but also all the local communities. What Kenneth is saying is, this is all grassroots movements. In New York City, which isn't far away from here, and it's not that much different, there were people waiting in line for free pepper spray that was being given out by, a grassroots organization in Chinatown. And so the lineup went around the corner, and it's like,
wow.
It's not anyone helping, and it's not even the best solution. Pepper spray isn't legal, and so, but this is the measures that need to be taken, and people are really scared. And this isn't just an American thing. This happens here on the streets, as we can see from this report, and so many that haven't been reported as well.
Wow, Asian Americans lining up for pepper spray as a way to protect themselves. Kenneth, I want to talk to you about the perpetrators behind these violent attacks. What did you find there? Was there any kind of trend or any pattern there?
This is definitely something new this year, and it comes from our partner organization, Project 1907, their reporting tool, which our total reports are jointly between our organization and theirs. Of what we have found is that there's data collected that offenders, perpetrators in 2021, 75% were white and 74% were men. And this information, definitely while imprecise, does not substantiate the common claim and harmful narrative that Black people are the primary offenders or perpetrators of anti-Asian violence. What we also know is that our data is supported by the findings of a similar study conducted by a project called the Virulent Hate Project in 2020, which looked at anti-Asian hate incidents and found that 77% of offenders were white and 68% were men. And so it's critical to ensure that we are mindful of the ways in which we speak about anti-Asian racism, including in ensuring that we do not continue to perpetrate anti-Blackness in our advocacy.
Okay, it is so important to collect this data. We're running out of time here, but I do want to ask you, Kenneth, we know the CCNC has come up with several calls to action for governments and institutions. What kind of support do you need? How do we tackle this very serious issue?
So we know that anti-Asian racism is a systemic issue, which means that, again, we require all levels of government, as well as policymakers, as well as all sectors to come together. What we really ask for is a sustained investment and ongoing multi-year funding for programming that is linguistically specific, culturally specific, so that we can do the anti-racism work, not only anti-Asian racism, but all types of oppression. And so that we can come together internally within our organization to recover, to heal, however, also so that we have the sustained funding and support to continue with these programming, including specific for addressing the violence that have been targeted against Asian women also.
I'm so glad we had this conversation. Kenneth Lin and Evie Kwong, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.